Are they still
I
saying
was-
anything about Stephen Smith?
I don't think
There's
anybody.
no connection to us?
Yeah, I don't think anybody took the
Did
heart
SLED
of
ever
it
come out and
because
say there's no connection?
no, SLED has not released anything. They didn't even release a statement about what was this most recent thing. Something came out not long ago talking about how there's been like a breakthrough in evidence to do with like the homicide.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Breaking news over the past couple of hours, the body of Buster's former classmate Stephen Smith is going to be exhumed, and that is based on his mother's wishes. What is this all about? Well, on the night of July 8, 2015, 8 years ago, a Wednesday, Stephen Smith was found lying in the road in a pool of blood. He had a 7.25-inch gash on the right side of his forehead, as well as a partially dislocated right shoulder and cuts and bruises on his right hand. That's according to Fitz News. Now, if you ask me, it is possible that Smith was struck by a vehicle. The partially dislocated shoulder certainly appears to reinforce that notion. On the other hand, there was no debris in the road. And it could also be that Smith was walking and someone was messing about while he was walking and perhaps swinging a bat playfully out the window, and then something unexpected happened. You might also say that there's no connection between the Murdaughs and Stephen Smith, and yet you've heard it. Alex Murdaugh seems to be sufficiently worried about it that he brings it up over and over again. He's brought it up multiple times with his son Buster, in calls from his jail cell. The other thing is Buster was a classmate of Stephen Smith, and now Stephen's mother will be exhuming her son's body just as the Murdaugh housekeeper's body was exhumed.
Nothing at the scene appeared that it was a vehicular accident. Walked both shoulders of the highway, east and west, looking for any evidence. Didn't see anything that appeared to be vehicular involved.
Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Please subscribe to Team Peachtree if you haven't already. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. Now, according to the website WJCL, quote, the Satterfield family attorneys Bland and Ronnie Richter uncovered what happened and recovered more than $7.5 million for Gloria's sons. In addition to that, they also got a confession of judgment from Alex, which got him disbarred the very next day. Now, the question is there something similar, something also sinister in this case that is intertextual, or that we can draw some kind of connection to in terms of this case and the housekeeper? And so regarding the fact that they did find justice for Gloria's sons, for the housekeeper's sons, but it remains unclear whether exhuming her body or performing a second autopsy provided any usable intel for the Satterfield attorneys. And so that's the question that we're dealing with here. Is exhuming Stephen Smith's body going to create some sort of breakthrough? Are they going to be able to find something as a result of that? Now, in the Stephen Smith case, because we are talking about blunt force trauma, a record of those injuries may be archived in a sense in the bone and skeletal remains. There's been speculation that rather than struck by a car, Stephen may have been bludgeoned with a baseball or softball bat. Now, I'd assume an autopsy might be able to verify this. The other thing that you can definitely determine in a definitive way is, if you get struck by a car, you tend to get struck once in a severe manner. If you are bludgeoned, well, then you're struck repeatedly, and that can be the difference between an accident scenario and a homicide scenario, as simple as that. So I would assume an autopsy might be able to verify this and also possibly match the type and perhaps the shape of the object. We had something similar in the John Benet Ramsey case where you could look at the skull scenario and then match the indentation to the skull to a particular object. And so the question here is, similar to that case, is it cylindrical? Of course, the bumper of a vehicle tends to be rounded too, so one needs to bear that in mind. Now, in terms of rumors of Buster's involvement, I guess the obvious question is, does he have an alibi for that Wednesday night, that date and time when Stephen Smith was killed? According to CBS, quote, the police reopened the Stephen Smith case in June 2021, so it's actually been open for 2 years already, in order to investigate how the 19-year-old was killed. Smith was found dead in the early morning hours on a South Carolina road from blunt force trauma to his head. His yellow Chevy was found about 3 miles away with his wallet inside and car's gas cap unscrewed. So, there's no question that this was some sort of drive-by thing going on where he was robbed. That is definitely not the case. So who could have done this that didn't need his wallet? The other thing is that the state police first said that Smith had car trouble and then he was walking for help and got hit by a car. Now, the other thing that his sister said was that same day he had trouble with the battery, the wires linking to the battery of his vehicle. Now, I have mentioned in the past that it makes no sense why you would unscrew the gas cap if you don't have any gas with you. No one checks inside the gas tank whether it's empty. I mean, that's what the fuel gauge is for. If you ran out of fuel, I think you would know, the reserve light is on, the gauge is, hanging outside of the box. I must have run out of fuel. I don't think you're going to open the gas tank to check. But it is interesting that may have been done as a kind of staging, as a kind of message to everybody else. This is why it was there. And I'd be interested to know if the tank really was empty. And even if it was, I wouldn't be surprised if this aspect was staged. Bear in mind, you could empty the gas tank using a siphoning method, right? But this raises another question. If it was staged, what was Stephen doing out in the woods by himself? In other words, if he didn't run out of gas. And one possibility is that he may have had engine trouble. Those wires may have let him down ultimately. Another possibility is that he was waiting for someone. I mean, did he run out of gas or was he there to meet someone? I've also mentioned in the past that there's another scenario in a road that also involves a murder, and that is where Alex Murdaugh staged what appeared to be an attempt on his life, right? So there is some kind of precedent for that as well. According to CBS, audio on which state police were overheard has showed that some officers disagreed that nothing appears to be a vehicular accident, right? No headlights were broken. Smith was found with his shoes on, a rare outcome. Also, his phone was undamaged. His phone was in his pocket and undamaged. And so Seth Stoughton, a law professor at the University of South Carolina, said, this raises serious questions about whether a hit and run is the right conclusion. Meanwhile, Stephen Smith's family believe that he was murdered. His mother wants an independent determination of his cause of death. In South Carolina, the next of kin can request a permit to exhume a body, and that's exactly what she's done. I think she's raised $40,000 in order for that to happen. And so Stephen's mother has posted on a website dedicated to raising money to that effort. She's written the following, quote, we need a new unbiased look at his body, at Stephen's body, and an accurate determination of his cause of death based on facts. There was no debris on the road, and his injuries were not consistent with a hit and run, end quote. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means, but as I say, one of the things you want to look at is there kind of a singular instance of blunt force, or is there multiple? And that might be the clue that you need. Now, I can see a foul play or a fraud play scenario with regard to the housekeeper, but there's no insurance scenario here. The only reason the Murdaughs might have an interest in the Stephen Smith case is to protect their reputation. But if so, protect it from what? And protect it how exactly?
The rumors continue to flow about how the night that Stephen died, he had been on the way home from school in his car and ran out of gas.
I just know that he said it was Buster and maybe one or two other people.
Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.